Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 987. 987, December the 15th, 2019, Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so we have a couple of important pieces of Spygate information to get to today. Follow up on the IG report type of thing. But before we do, let's go ahead and get the silly stuff out of the way because there's plenty of that today too. Okay, so here we go. The Bidens. The Bidens. I'm predicting it's going to be a very bad year for the Bidens. Yep, Burisma Joe, Hunter, and the whole crew. It's not going to be a very good year. Of course, we just got the report in yesterday that Burisma Joe's wall, his wall or barrier, whatever you want to call it, down there in South Carolina, is now down to a single-digit lead. He had a double-digit lead, and he was saying, okay, well, I may lose or not do well in New Hampshire, maybe not in Iowa, but he was counting on having a big win in South Carolina, and that was going to be what was going to propel him forward. But now it looks like Burisma Joe is down to a single-digit lead in South Carolina. We have, of course, Booty Boy, Buddy Gag, coming up behind him very quickly. Sanders and Warren are pretty much have gone back to their late summer numbers. So I think that they've reached equilibrium, and there's really no one else threatening. Bloomberg's not really doing very well. There's no one else in the field that can do anything. It looks like at this point it's headed for a brokered convention unless something happens. And I think Biden's got a floor. I think his floor is probably somewhere in the high teens, low 20s. And if you have Bernie somewhere in the 13, 14, 15, 16, and Warren somewhere in the 15, 16, 17, 18, and then you have Biden getting in the 19, maybe low 20s, if that's the way it shakes out going through the going into the primaries and nothing really changes, and I don't really think a whole lot can change. You're going to have three places, first, second, and third, and it's really going to be those three, Biden, Warren, and Sanders, pretty much jockeying for those three spots. Buttigieg might be able to pull out a third or a second or maybe even win one of those. But it looks like there's not going to be anyone that's going to get a clear majority, and this would favor a brokered convention, which would be exactly what the rotten Reverend Clinton, the demonic buzzard, who is, of course, circling overhead, just waiting, that will be exactly what she would want. It's almost like it's being perfectly engineered for that, as hard as that sounds. And now I'm not quite that far gone that I believe that the rotten Reverend Clinton would be able to manipulate things to that extent. I think that would be quite difficult to do. I think she's just taking advantage of the opportunities as they come, looking at the state of play and making her best guess on what to do. And if you're the rotten Reverend Clinton and you're seeing this situation shaking itself out, you really don't want Biden out of there. Because a month or two ago, I would have thought, in late fall, I would have thought, okay, well, she probably wants to force Biden out sometime around, between Halloween and Thanksgiving, somewhere in that point, get him out. But if you look at the way things are now, the rotten Reverend Clinton, if she uses a brokered convention strategy, you want Biden in to keep the other two from getting that threshold of 51%. So that's the way it looks right now. But getting back to the Biden's bad year that they're about to have, Biden's, I still can't believe, and my mind will not accept the idea that he's going to be the nominee. I keep thinking certainly there's sane Democrats out there who can see that the man purely is not well. I mean, again, I just watched another couple clips of him. You have a clip where he's talking about how he can cross the aisle and work with people and how he can get things done, and how when Obama needed him to go get the votes, he could get the votes, and he starts dropping these votes that they had, and one of them he drops is Obamacare. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Did he just say that he went out and whipped votes for Obama to get Obamacare passed? Are you kidding me? Not a single Republican in the House, not a single Republican in the Senate voted for Obamacare. Yet he's trying to tell this group of like 30 or 40 people in a room that he went out and whipped the votes to get Republicans to cross over and vote for Obamacare. And he probably believes this. He doesn't know, or can't remember, that not a single Republican voted for Obamacare. Oh, man. And then he gets, he thinks he's talking to friendly media. He's doing an NPR interview with this info babe from NPR, and she challenges him a little bit on this deal, and she's like, well, this deal, I mean, I know you don't want to talk about it, but I mean, will you at least admit that it didn't look good that Hunter Biden, your son, gets a job on the board for this corrupt company in Ukraine while you're the vice president, you're in charge, and of course the thing with the prosecutor, I mean, you got to at least admit it doesn't look good, right? And he was having none of it. And then she mentioned he tried to push back. She kind of cuts him off and says, yeah, but, because he starts saying, well, nobody's ever said a single word. Nobody's ever blah, 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 blah. I didn't know anything. And at which point she pushes back and says, whoa, wait. I mean, we just had George Kent testify in the impeachment hearings that they were concerned about this deal with your son being on the board of Burisma, this horribly corrupt company that they were all aware of was corrupt, and they wanted this investigated along with other corruption investigated. And the fact that your son's on the board, it created a problem. And the fact that George Kent said in his testimony that that they did brief your staff on the problem. At which point Biden pushes back, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They briefed my staff, but I didn't know. No one told me. So they brief his staff on this problem, but they don't say anything to him. Now, there's another theory. This has been pushed on him before, or on someone about Biden, and they're saying now, well, yeah, the staff got the memo, but because that was right after his son Beau died, he was very, maybe not a good time to hit him with this, or whatever. So this appears to be the sort of scapegoat explanation that they're giving, is that when he was his staff was notified of it, they didn't pass it on to him because he had just recently lost his other son, Beau, and so therefore it was a bad time, so they never brought it to his attention. But I find it's nearly, again, this is all BS. I mean, there have been stories written about Burisma and Hunter Biden. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. Everybody knows how corrupt it is. I mean, he's not going to win this, okay? This is a loser. This is a stone-cold loser. And his response to it, again, as I've been saying for weeks now, I am absolutely convinced that the Rotten Reverend Clinton's people are running his campaign and advising him, because I've never seen anyone get such bad advice and take it and continue to believe that he's doing the right thing. But just watching him, again, just watching Quid Pro Quo Joe, I mean, and even his wife, she's on MSNBC. Of course, she gets nothing but super softball questions, and then they broach the issue of family, and of course she's getting total softballs. They're not really giving her any tough questions about Hunter Biden, but she kind of looks at the guy and goes, "Hunter did nothing wrong." No, he did nothing wrong. He gets booted out of the Navy for doing crack. He's got a reputation for prostitutes and being on crack. He leaves his wallet, a Secret Service ID, and a crack pipe, and a baggie with some I guess powder crack in it, and a line of crack on the dash or something. I mean, and and he can't resolve that with Hertz rental car, and then he gets caught up in this scandal. He's caught up in this scandal with China. There's some other stuff he's involved in, and then he gets this stripper pregnant. And and now it appears that his actual wife is now pregnant. So now his wife just got pregnant at the same time that he just finds out that he's being sued in this case in Arkansas because he got the stripper pregnant, and now she's wanting, obviously going to be wanting child support and all these things. And he, at the same time, he's saying, "Yeah, well, I'm unemployed and I'm flat broke," or I mean, no, he's done nothing wrong. He's just fine. The family is just absolutely wonderful. And to keep in mind, at one point he divorces his wife after his brother dies of brain cancer. His brother dies. He divorces his wife and then takes up a relationship with his recently dead brother's wife. And it's during that time that he's banging this stripper in D.C. I mean, this is it. And it only gets worse and worse and worse. Not to mention, I'm watching Burisma Joe, and it's obvious. Look, 3 of my 4 grandparents had dementia. One actually got full-blown Alzheimer's, died of Alzheimer's. My one grandfather died of Alzheimer's. My other 3 grandparents all had dementia. I know exactly what dementia looks like in its kind of early stages, and it progresses rapidly. I'm telling you, and many of you know this, if you have grandparents or parents that have had dementia, you know exactly what it is when you see it. I'm telling you that Burisma Joe is in the relatively early stages of dementia, and it gets rapidly worse. Rapidly worse. And keep in mind, he's 77. By the time he took office, he would be 78, going on 79. You know, I mean, by the time he gets into his first Easter at the White House, quid pro quo Joe, Burisma Joe, he'll be able to hide his own Easter eggs. That's right. He'll be able to hide his own Easter eggs. So that's not good. You can't have that situation. You can't have this guy leading the country. It's got to be obvious to a lot of big Democratic donors. He's sticking around. He's not going away. I think he thinks that makes him look tough or whatever. No, it makes him look stupid. And so my final plea to anyone, the family of Joe Biden, please, for the love of God, do not let this continue. It is embarrassing. It's even hard for me at this point, getting harder for me to even make fun of him, because now it's actually like, you know, he's actually got this problem, okay? It's not even really all that funny anymore. He needs to be retired. He needs to just go away. His dementia will continue to get worse. Pretty soon, he'll just be a crazy, crazy son of a bitch old man, and eventually he'll leave this earth. But not every one of these big donor heads of the Democratic Party are oblivious to this. It's obvious. And, you know, it's time, man. It's time for the family of Joe Biden to pull his ass out of there, because it's getting pitiful. Well. The Pelosi Schiff Inquisition is getting worse and worse and worse by the day. As I have been saying, every day they lose more Democrats, more defectors. They could only lose 19 to begin with. We know that there's 6 already. 6. That was the last count. There may be no more by now that are not going to vote for the impeachment. It's getting very hairy, and my guess is I wouldn't be surprised if they try to move this vote up to Monday. It's supposed to happen sometime middle of next week, Wednesday or Thursday of next week, or this upcoming week. This upcoming week, but before the Christmas break. But Merry Christmas, America. But I don't know, man. I don't know if the votes are there. And of course, today we have all over the headlines. It's not official yet. We don't know this officially. Has not been announced officially, but it's being certainly reported all over the media sphere that the New Jersey Democrat Jeff Van Drew is going to switch party from Democrat to Republican, and he's doing so over the Inquisition / impeachment fiasco. He met with Donald Trump in the Oval Office on Friday. Met with President Trump in the Oval Office on Friday. So if this is true, and it looks like it is true, this would be a devastating blow. Just exactly what you do not want is to have a Democrat jump ship, switch parties over this. That is the wrong message. That's a wrong momentum, the wrong PR, certainly the wrong momentum you want going into this vote, which is already on shaky ground. If Pelosi loses this vote, she's basically out of power as the speaker. She might stick around because she's too stubborn to leave. Most speakers would resign and just go away. But she's probably so stubborn she would try to stick around, but she's effectively powerless at that point. So we will have to see what happens. But again, as I've been saying for the past 2 weeks now, I'm not so sure they got the votes. Nothing they did in Nadler, the Penguin, nothing they did in his committee over this past week would have changed any minds. There was no new facts brought to light. The charges are, they're very general: abuse of power, obstruction of Congress. I mean, specifically what did he do? Specifically what? No one can answer the question. It's just not looking good. At the same time, you have the bug-eyed fool, the pencil neck geek, Adam Schifferbrains. He goes to give a speech about this Armenian genocide, and what shows up there is not a bunch of people wanting to hear about the Armenian genocide and how we're now going to recognize that or whatever. Instead, the place gets overrun with Trump supporters who spend 15, 20 minutes shouting down the bug-eyed fool, calling him a liar and a cheat and a stiff and everything else. Completely interrupted the event. And Schiff was, of course, red as a beet. Didn't really know how to respond. Didn't know how all them Trump supporters got into the room. But they certainly turned that thing upside down. You have the Commie News Network. You had one of their regular mouthpieces, Gloria Borger, hardcore anti-Trumper, coming on there on the panel, explaining to the host there how the polls are not looking good for the Inquisition, the impeachment, and how particularly that they're bleeding in the area of independence is where they're losing the worst. So, yeah, that it doesn't not look good for that whole situation. We'll have to watch and see. By this time next week, we're going to know. And I just got a gut instinct that this thing's going to go very, very badly. Be happy you're not a Democrat right now. Because if you're a part of the Demo-Commie Party right now, you could be nothing but depressed. All they do is lose, lose, lose. While all we do is win, win, win. But they've got some advice coming from Al Gore. That's right, Al Gore. So Al Gore has decided to throw his 2 cents in and give the Dems some advice on what they can do to turn this thing around. And he's telling them that they should embrace the new Green Deal. Man, these people are nuttier than hell. The new Green Deal. Maybe Al Gore will throw his hat into the ring. Maybe we'll get a Hillary Al Gore ticket. Oh boy, but here we go. It looks like the rotten Reverend Clinton. She's got her book out there. She does the Howard Stern interview. She's got all of her surrogates out there doing everything she can to convince us that there's an actual grassroots campaign to draft Hillary, because many, many, many people are calling her and telling her to run. So now they're announcing that they're getting ready to do a 4-part series on the rotten Reverend. That's right. It's a Hillary love fest, which is going to first appear on Hulu, and it's going to premiere at the Sundance Film Festival in January. How about that timing? Just exactly what the Dem field is looking forward to as they begin their primaries. The Rotten Reverend Clinton's releasing her 4-part series out there for people to see, and it's a Hillary love fest. Why do you think that is? Who do you think's behind that? Who do you think produced all that? And when do you think it was planned? It's already been in the can for a while. Man, oh man, you got to be stupid. You got to be flat out stupid not to see this thing coming a mile away. Remember, the day after the 2016 election, I said the Rotten Reverend Clinton will be, 2020 will be a rematch. I've been saying it since that time. I've never wavered, and I continue to say it to this day. And as we get closer and closer to that time, I believe I will be proven correct. The only thing that could prevent that is if John Durham drops charges on her. Okay, we still have Glenn Simpson and Peter Frisch, the two Confusion GPS guys out there. Now they're over in the UK trying to peddle and pander their garbage. Literally, over in the UK, talking about how essentially the dossier is all good, despite what we just learned from Horowitz. Huckleberry Horowitz told us the dossier was garbage, but yet here is Simpson and Frisch over in the UK talking it up about what a wonderful document was and how they worked very closely with Christopher Steele and how this is all good. And they're actually trying to make the argument while they're over in the UK that because their dossier was so effective in getting Mueller appointed to look into Russia's intrusion into the elections, and then it's happening there too, the Russians are involved there too, that they should get their own Mueller prosecution to look into the meddling in the Brexit vote elections, which, by the way, the vote that they just had pretty much, proves that in fact people want Brexit. The Russians didn't help the Brexit vote pass or anything else. I mean, these people are just unbelievable. So I don't know. Maybe they're thinking they'll get together with Steele and write a British dossier. Maybe they can do a British dossier on Boris Johnson and get a special counsel to investigate him. See if he's working with the Ruskies. And maybe that's what they'll say. Yeah, he was working with the Ruskies, and that's why in the parliamentary elections they won so big. It was Boris working with the. His name's Boris. Isn't that a Russian name? Boris working with the Ruskies. They'll just need a Boris dossier. They'll get the old team back together. Christopher Steele, Mr. Baumgartner. They can call on Nellie and Bruce. They can get drag Comey and McCabe out of the mothballs. Peter's been stroking us, and Loose Lisa Page maybe can do their contribution. They can break out good old Uncle Bob, the executioner, and he can bring along the Hillary donor posse along with Andrew Wiseass, and they can reconstitute their efforts over in the UK, do a UK dossier, and we can get to enjoy this all again. How about that? Well, there you go. And it looks like, of course, and it like I said, it's a very, very, very bad day for the demo commies. In fact, it's been a bad week and a bad year, and it's going to continue to be so. So it looks like Commie Bernie had endorsed Chink Ogar from the Young Turks, but now he's had to drop his endorsement of Jink Ugar over at the Young Turds because of of course, if you remember, Jink made a bunch of comments that were kind of sexist and things like that. He took a lot of heat over that. But now they've dug up another segment, another Twitter response he had to something where he's actually suggesting that bestiality would be a good thing to engage in. So now, based on his bestiality comments, it looks like Commie Bernie has had to drop his endorsement for Jink. These people are nuts, man. Straight up crazy Looney Tunes. Okay, and Bernie, he might join Burisma Joe out there in that Easter egg hunt. They can hide each other. They can hide their own eggs together. Let's see. I didn't have a chance to mention this because there's so much going on in the 2 to 3 days following the IG hearing with Huckleberry Horowitz, the custodian, and I didn't get to mention, I don't think, a specific thing that Ted Cruz, who did a very, very good job there with his questioning on Horowitz, and there was something he said that I wish would have landed a little harder. Not that Ted Cruz didn't deliver it beautifully, he did. It's just that it didn't really get picked up on or followed up on. But I think ultimately in the end, Durham is going to discover this if he has not already, and it's really going to open up an entire new window into what we're already talking about with Spygate. Everybody focused on the FBI and the CIA and foreign governments and private contractors and this and that, but still not enough focus being placed on where a lot of this was really coming from and who was driving it. And of course that would be the Right Reverend Clinton. And in his statement, as he was talking to Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz in the hearings, Ted Cruz said, quote, "The entire FBI operation was funded by Hillary and the DNC. It was the most successful Oppo research campaign in history." Yes, that's absolutely right. Let's not forget, the Right Reverend Clinton planned, organized, directed, and controlled the entire thing. If you just, again, I've been through this. I'll probably do it again in the next couple of days or weeks, where I lay out exactly how involved the Right Reverend Clinton was in funneling and pipelining this entire thing. And she is ultimately the mastermind of the Spygate plot. And Ted Cruz got really damn close to making that statement. Came up a little short, but for the most part, he nailed it. I'm just waiting for more people to finally pick up on this, as it's been obvious to me for a very long time. And we're hearing some people complaining about the fact that they're not aware of Huckleberry Horowitz making any criminal referrals. Well, I guess some people missed it there, but right after the IG report came out and before he went for the hearings, there were various statements that were made regarding Horowitz, where we learned that he didn't make specific criminal referrals from his recent IG report because there was so many people involved, and it's everyone, as Horowitz described, everyone who touched it, that he literally referred the entire Horowitz report to the Attorney General for criminal referral. he referred not just individuals. He normally say, okay, well, this guy and this guy did something wrong, probably criminal referral, like McCabe or Comey or whatever. No. In this particular case, because of what he was dealing with in the FISA and the dossier and the amount of incredible fraud and lies and corruption that went on there, he just went ahead and referred the entire IG report as a criminal referral. The entire IG report has been given to the Attorney General, included with a criminal referral to go with the entire report. The entire IG report is a criminal referral, according to his office, the Office of Inspector General. No individual criminal referrals, because the entire IG report was given to the DOJ as a criminal referral. That's everybody. Everybody in the report is subject to criminal referral. Of course, many of you have been watching the videos. We know about the incredible parliamentary elections in the UK. Congratulations again to all of my friends over across the pond. Well done. And for those people who say voting doesn't matter, doesn't change things, you're proven wrong again. We've been witnessing the leftists now in the UK coming unhinged, revolting, very similar to what we saw here in 2016, and we're going to see it worse in 2020. But in 2016, it was just total meltdowns that we were seeing here. But what we can see happening over in the UK is they're actually starting to resort to a little bit of violence, and they've got a slogan now. The revolutionaries over there have a slogan which is "One Solution, Revolution." So here we have the radical leftists. They really don't like democracy very much. When their side wins, they love democracy. When their side loses, they hate it. But they're not really big on democracy, freedom, capitalism, rights, or anything like that. Of course, as we can see, everywhere they go, they destroy rights and freedom and democracy. So this is something I think that we ought to pay very close attention to. And they're dealing with it over in the UK. Now, obviously, they're managing the problem. It's not the whole country hasn't gone into revolt. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of people voted in the parliamentary elections to support Brexit. That's what the majority of folks over there want. And the majority of people over there are sane and they're fine. But you're always going to have that relatively small group which is going to make a lot of the noise. And that's what you have going on in the UK. But I think that what we saw here is sort of a precursor to what we can expect in 2020 here when Trump is reelected. I expect this time we won't see so much of a meltdown as we'll see the Democrats go completely nuts in their anger and just absolute hatred for all of us who voted for Trump and the fact that they get 4 more years of Trump. And I do expect that we're going to see similar type of thing happen here after the 2020 elections, and of course we'll just laugh at them as they're being arrested. So now a couple important pieces of information. So as we talked about yesterday, everyone's curious about who this SubSource is for Christopher Steele. A lot of people have been digging into that, looking at the descriptions. Of course, the fact that we kind of learned that he was not Russian, but he's an American citizen, but he's of Belarusian descent. Well, once we learn that, it kind of makes it pretty logical and pretty simple who they're talking about, who Christopher Steele's SubSource was. The person who would best meet the description of the SubSource would be Sergei Millian. Sergei Millian, who had been previously described in the dossier as Source D in the first 6 memos, and then the remaining memos he was described as Source E. Sergei Millian. He was also the first one that we were told was talking about the Carter Page information and the PP-Gate story, although now I think more people are thinking the PP-Gate story, well, we know it was corroborated by Sidney Blumenthal, which would have been on behalf of Cody Shearer. So it looks like, I'm not sure which one of them originated it, but it looks like now it's suggesting that Millian may have originated that and that Cody Shearer and would have been the guy to corroborate that. So right now it looks like it's a very high likelihood that the SubSource that the IG is talking about in the IG report, Steele's so-called SubSource's main contact guy, was Sergei Millian. And of course, he's fairly accessible. I mean, he does media interviews. He's You watch YouTube video clips of him discussing this stuff. So there you go, Sergei Millian. That would certainly make sense. Tomorrow, or I should say this morning, probably as you're watching this video, or shortly after, or shortly before, Comey is going to be on Fox with Chris Wallace. So I'll watch that, but I don't expect much. I have very low expectations with Chris Wallace, who's a communist, like his father, who is a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, Mike Wallace. He's probably a lot like his daddy-o, and we know that Chris Wallace hates Trump, is an anti-Trumper, and I think he'll try to defend Comey. He's going to try to do one of them deals, which you see a lot, where it looks like he's trying to be tough on Comey, but he'll pull his punches at every turn. He'll press Comey on some things, but he has to do that so he doesn't look like a total shill, because he knows it's Fox. A little harder to fool the Fox crowd than it is the MSNBC or CNN crowd. So, but I don't expect much out of Chrissy Wallace, but we'll watch and see. You can expect Comey to continue to lie his ass off. Cardinal Comey, the former director of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, the disgusting, disgraceful piece of shit, who will be spending the rest of his life in federal prison sometime beginning, I would say, around the late spring, early summer of next year. Okay, well, it looks like there's a bit of a showdown going on. Maybe Gene can give us more information on this. Trying to follow this story, but it looks like Governor Blackface over there in Virginia, is suggesting that he may use the National Guard to confiscate guns. I would have a very difficult time believing he would actually go that far in Virginia. Keep in mind, Virginia is a lot like a lot of states, where they have a large metropolis where a lot of the people are, where they have a lot of the votes, and then the rest of the state is countryside. It's mountains and farms and agricultural stuff and meadows and beautiful country over there in Virginia. Don't know if you've ever been through Virginia, but it's a beautiful country. And it's like a lot of these states. We have a large population center, and then the rest of the state is rural, very much rural. And so what you would have here is this idea where this large metropolitan area in Virginia is going to try to force these folks, these common folks here out in the rural areas, force them into turning in their guns, and they're just not going to do that. If Blackface tries this, I expect armed resistance, and I think that the federal government may then have to get involved. Of course, this is the Second Amendment gives people the right to keep and bear arms. That is the law of the land. These people will have a legitimate reason to use force to defend their constitutional rights. And so I think that you will have a very difficult situation there. How the National Guard would respond to that, how the federal government would respond, how the Attorney General and the President would respond to that upon learning that Blackface, Governor Blackface, is going to use National Guard to enforce gun confiscation. Legally, he can probably do it at this point. I'm not saying specifically on guns, but legally the governor is in charge of the National Guard. How this would end up working out legally, I just don't know. But if he actually tries this, that could be very ugly. And it would be devastating for Democrats, because that will wake up a lot of people. A lot of gun owners across the country who do not vote will be paying very close attention. And they'll go, holy shit, they're actually going to do it. Well, if this crazy left-wingist Democrat will try that, they'll try that anywhere. And you will see people who never have voted before, who are gun owners, will get registered in a hurry and vote Republican. I mean, I've never seen more disastrous policies. It's almost like the Democratic Party is trying to destroy itself. If I were going to give the Democratic Party a blueprint for how to destroy yourself, it would look exactly like what they're doing.